Okay, this is another interview done on February 23rd, 1987. This is at the trailer home of Clyde Leroy Bathrick, who lives just across from the little UP church here in Buffalo Township. And he likes to be called Roy, so we'll call him Roy. He has become quite a controversial figure locally, and off tape Roy was explaining to us that he's had his life threatened and consistently receives threatening letters and cards and hateful mail and that sort of thing. And he's done quite a bit of writing on his changes, his evolution in philosophy from the time he was a Baptist theologian to now, the present, where he's pretty much come to realize that he was really, in Roy's words, peddling religious dope, and it's all bullshit, according to Roy. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Roy, and I'll start just with the question to him about. I'd like to hear a little bit about Roy's background in terms of his family life. He's got children. He was married, and I'd like to hear something to give us a little history in that way. Okay, Roy.
Well, actually, I was born in 1911. The fourth of six children of Merritt and Alice Bathrick. We lived on a farm outside of Rome, New York, and I was reared as a Baptist and felt that I was a very devoted person. My mother and dad were very devoted Christians. We had prayer for every meal. I prayed before we went to bed at night. We had Bible reading. And all of us were believers in the Baptist religion. And then when I don't know how old I was now, but I left home and went with the J.C. Penney Company down in Oneonta, New York. That was about 90 miles away, as an assistant manager in the store. I had already worked in the penny store in Rome, where I got my experience. And there I met my wife, Dorothy, a very beautiful woman. And she was beautiful to the day she died. Although we were divorced in 1983, after we'd been married for 47 and more years, why, I am not sure, except that she was a victim of cancer. And also because of the influence of a couple of the children, she felt, I guess, that the income or the estate that she received from her father, she didn't want me to have control of it in any way, so she felt that it would be better to divorce me. And she did. I agreed to it. We had a mutual divorce. There was no argument. And she went to live with my daughter over in Partyville. And then she continued to get worse. And she died in 1983. And it was then that I made up my mind that inasmuch as I was still alive after my experience in the hospital, I would dig out my old manuscript, which I had started back in 1955. And although I'd had a fire in the basement, most of the things were destroyed. I was able to dig out enough to get started again. And I stuck at it and finally came up with this manuscript. Is that enough for now?
The manuscript that Roy refers to is about 175 pages, I think, in length. Also with us today is Randall, my friend, who is an expert editor as well as a very good writer. He has had a chance to look over Roy's rough draft initial manuscript, And Louis, I'm sure, has some questions he'd like to ask Roy, too. A couple other things, though, before I hand it over to Louis, come to mind. Roy, we should describe something of the rather unusual or colorful, maybe, surroundings here in the trailer. Basically, you've chosen a wallpaper that is done in Playboy centerfolds, and they're all named, Karen, Jackie, I see. It looks like Nikki over there. There's a number of them at any rate.
494. 494 altogether.
Nudes. 494
nude pictures.
Nude women, and you're also a bit of an artist when it comes to pie tins and with dildos hanging off of them. I see you've got those with various messages scattered about. And I did take that one that you gave me last week and passed it on to my lovely friend Gail that you did meet some months ago, and she's got it hanging in her bathroom, in fact, now. So what do you think about that? You might want to just say hi to Gail. She'd get a kick out of that, and she does have it, as I said, hanging in the bathroom.
Well, Gail, I hope you enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed the comments from all the people. Not all of them have been favorable by any means, but most of them have been. And I hope you get a kick out of it.
Roy, the other thing, I remember when Gail and I visited you some months back, I see that you don't have the same signs in the trailer window now. At that time, I think you had something that said, I stink and I know I stink and call me Stinky and all that. Now, why did you take those down?
Because I use DMSO, and whoever uses DMSO always has an odor of oysters, an odd odor.
What is the MSO?
It's a byproduct of the forestry industry, lumber industry, and it's a juice that comes from all pine trees. And I use it for my arthritis and my blood pressure. Whenever I have great arthritis pain, I spray that on or take a swig of it with a little brandy or milk or something else, and it's helped me wonderfully well. Of course, the medical profession doesn't recognize it. They don't use it.
Do you also want to comment a little bit on some of the lady friends you have adorning the walls here? They're all, of course, beautiful women.
Well, all I can say is that I credit my lady friends the fact that they've been willing to share their beauty with me. Now, I don't know a single one of them, but I'm so grateful that they're not ashamed of their bodies, any portion, that they're grateful, and they're willing to share that beauty with an old codger like me.
Did your wife have the same sort of philosophy about her body?
Yes, she did. I don't have any of her pictures around anymore. She had a lot of men out. And she had a book of men's pictures, too, like I have several of ladies. She had several of men. But we all she appreciated with me.
So your sexual life was very good?
Our sexual life was wonderful.
Well, that's really nice.
And I think I attribute that much of my ability to overcome my problems to the ability to enjoy sex. Even today, with masturbation, the release that comes is really a genuine positive factor.
How do you get up in the morning or whenever you decide to masturbate and choose from 494 lovely women?
I don't choose for any one. Actually, it doesn't happen like that. Surrounded by this, all of a sudden, the impulse comes. And it's not any one girl. It's the overall impression of recognizing beauty and wonder that influences my subconscious, probably. I have never stopped to analyze it, really. I don't know.
How does nature tie into all this, Roy, philosophically at least? And I see when I look around here that you've got a lot of books on your shelf that deal with trees and birds and flowers and even reptiles and amphibians and insects. Also, I see that you religiously, well, I better not use that word, but you ardently, at least, regularly feed the birds. You're an enthusiast. You have a lot of chickadees at the feeder, and How does this whole natural philosophy tie in with all the ladies on the wall and all that?
I think they're all part of the same thing. It's just a purely natural, wonderful feeling. When I go outside, I feel at home with nature. Not that nature favors me any more than anyone else, but I feel at home with nature. Whether it's raining or snowing or whatever, it doesn't make any difference.
How does what role does the popular image of God portray in greater nature? In other words, is popular religion something you think that perhaps distorts, rapes nature, I guess, in a sense, exploits it certainly, or at least separates people from nature? How do you feel about that?
I don't know that it separates them from nature, but God doesn't exist. God is a character, a fictional character created by men to gain control of other people. And every religion that I've ever studied has exactly the same source. Some human being who decides that he can fool people by claiming that he's had visions or that God has talked to him. I never had it myself, and I don't believe in my heart that any other human being ever did either, because I do not believe now that God exists. God is purely a fictional character, and as you read in my book, in that last part, Gospel, but I don't know whether you read it or not, they all vanish at the end. And I hope that's going to help a lot of people. No, I don't think Jesus Christ ever lived. I don't think that the Holy Spirit exists except in the minds of people. That's all.
It's interesting because we probably now live in a political system where popular or powerful money-grabbing religion is at its all-time epitome, and it's certainly backed in large part by the Reagan administration. And I'm speaking now of religious figures in our society like Jerry Falwell, Oral Roberts, and Pat Robertson, who's even talked about the presidency recently, and others. How do you feel about that? It seems to me that would be kind of a dangerous, insidious thing that's spreading through our culture.
I believe that Reagan is a traitor just like Nixon. He's a damn liar, and he is a warmonger. He uses people. He uses the army and the force, along with Weinberger, to control people. When he wanted to influence the world, what did he do but go over to Japan and broadcast from Japan, a country that we had very nicely put into the position of slavery with the atomic bomb over Hiroshima. We did it. We're the destroyers, no one else. We're the ones who think we can control the world because we've got the power. Reagan, right now, I believe, should be impeached without any question. In fact, I've written a postcard to Proxmire, writing a postcard where everybody could read it. Reagan is a liar, so forth, and I believe that he should be impeached.
I know Lewis has some questions for you. I'm going to be turning it over to him. I would just...
Let me get an example. Would you like a soft drink of some kind? A Sprite? You?
Roy, when I look around the room here, you've got a couple ladies that remind me a lot of my friend Gail. How have you been getting along since 1983 when you suffered that divorce? I mean, are you missing the companionship and especially the sexual companionship?
Yes, I have. And my wife too. But even when she had cancer, we talked about it a lot. And
do you have any?
Masturbate. Although she couldn't to have intercourse. I would help her masturbate, and we enjoyed the fondling, caressing. But it's just one thing, but it's a big thing in my life. I'm going to turn some lights on. It's really dim.
Roy, have you ever entertained the idea of getting another sexual partner?
No. I don't feel that it would be fair to the person, for one thing. I wouldn't say that I haven't entertained the idea. I did it one time. In fact, to tell you the truth, I put an ad in the paper. That very thing. And one ad in a local paper, Shopper's Newsletter, brought me 53 responses. And out of the 53 responses, 49 of them were married, living with their husbands. Believe it or not.
I believe it.
What does that tell you?
Well, it tells me that there are a lot of people running around who pretend to be something that they're not. And a lot of the people who wrote to me and called me actually are very fine church people. And some of their friends wouldn't believe it.
Did you do this up here in the local area where all the respondents were all from around here?
All around here, yeah. Well, I'd say within an area of 30 miles, yeah.
Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Lewis now. I know he's got some questions for you, too.
Well, you know, Roy, you and I think an awful lot alike. I've been impressed by the similarities since you began talking this afternoon. I, like you, am a great lover of sex and the female form. I know that expression of sexual pleasure with a woman for me is completely natural and is certainly part of my prescription for health, physical and emotional, and mental as well. And I've also, I'm like you in this respect. I've been a student of literature since I was 17 years old. I've got several degrees in the study of poetry and drama and fiction. And I can recognize a piece of fiction very, very quickly. I've always felt that the entire biblical account is a fiction, particularly the New Testament. If there's any truth in the 66 books, it must be in the Old Testament. Well, my first question to you today is, you said you had been a Baptist preacher, a Baptist minister, and that you were raised in the Baptist faith, and that you were a believer. I'm interested to know about when in your life, in your career as a believer, and as a preacher of that belief, you began to disbelieve, and what that process involved for you. In other words, when did you lose your faith, and how did it happen?
Well, it was probably around 53 or 54. Not until 55 did I actually give up preaching. I was preparing for the sermon that I was preaching in a church in Philadelphia. And it was going to involve the story of Noah and the ark. When I got into it, like never before, I wanted to follow it up a little bit more in detail. So I changed my subject for the next Sunday morning sermon, and I kept after over a period of about 2 years. Wherever I traveled, and I was traveling quite a lot then, all across the country, back and forth, I was in business. I only preached on Sundays as a guest speaker or at conventions and so forth. So, pardon me.
Right, I do see, though, that you have a degree in theology, and also you are an ordained minister. Is that correct?
That's right. Yes. I was ordained by the people in New Jersey. Council of Ministers got together and questioned me and so forth and so on. But I served in the church, in my own church, for 7 years, and then became the director of the American Baptist Publication Society retail bookstore and mail order organization. But I still continue to do preaching, of course, but as a guest preacher. And in many denominations. But when preparing this sermon on Noah and the Ark, I was sort of taken back when I began to figure out really what it said and what it meant, if what it said was true. And I realized it would be impossible. The more I developed it, the more questions I asked, the more people I talked to, the more honest to goodness research I did. And that's explained in the manuscript in detail so that people can study it for themselves. They don't have to take my word for it. The Bible disproves itself. And then when I went on from then into New Jerusalem, the end of the Bible and Revelation, I found the same thing to be a damn hoax. Absolutely impossible. It's a lie. All of it. There is not a single verifiable historical fact in the Bible. I defy anyone to prove anything that is in the Bible. It must fall beyond faith, and faith alone.
How long did it take you after realizing that the Ark, the Noah's Ark story is nothing more than a fiction? How long did it take you to lose your faith in Jesus Christ?
I would say actually immediately. I began to doubt the whole thing. And then when I got into Revelation, it all opened up and I realized that there was nothing in it at all. That Jesus Christ is no more a real human being.
I've always known that.
And God is not real. They're purely fictional characters created by men who are evil in that they try to control other people with these fictional tales. And actually, I hope if I can get this thing published, it'll spark somebody else smarter than I am to continue exposing it in a very violent way.
I'd like to help you that.
Because people have got to be told. They've got to learn.
What was the reaction, Roy, to your family and other people close to you when you underwent this revelation? Also, I'm curious. Did you paint the concrete foundation out here that fronts on County O?
Yes. Uh-huh.
You did.
It's so poorly done, but
No, in fact, it's
beautifully done.
2 or 3 letters at a time.
In fact, it's well done. It's the spelling is correct. It's an articulate piece of work, really.
If you only knew the number of falls I had, some days I'd only print part of a letter, but I kept at it.
How long did it take you? How long did it take you to finish the tableau out front?
About 8 months. And a little bit every day. Sometimes I didn't even get down there if I was bad. But
You're actually very artistic. As I look around here, you've got lots of little things on the wall that you've done, and I see that it's similar to what you have on the wall. It's really very good.
well, thanks. All these little things around on the floor, around the low, are there when I fall. I wake up and sometimes I don't know where I am, and those little things give me an awareness that I'm awake and I'm in my own home, and they encourage me,
How far back does your collection of Playboy magazines? You've got quite a few. Is that Oi you've got?
Oui.
Is that Oui in French? And then Playboys, what other brands do you have?
Oh, I don't think I have any more Playgirls. I think Dot took all those with her when she moved. But I don't know. Hustler, I have a couple of those. But we stuck with Playboy because we liked it.
How far back do those go? You've got files of them here.
I really don't know. But at least 5 or 6 years. Yeah, because I kept them. Bill Hefner, is more than a publisher. of Playboy magazine. Hugh Hefner's really got a wonderful philosophy. And I think he could have contributed a lot to our society if people would only recognize that he is an intelligent human being. And he's Hugh Hefner, publisher of Playboy. Yeah. I don't know them.
The question, Roy, I asked, I was getting ahead of myself. I apologize for that, but I was curious as to what the reaction of your family was and other people in the church and around you at the time that you experienced the revelation or lost faith in Jesus Christ and in the church.
I was completely ostracized. Instantly. And it's lasted all these years. For instance, now the only one of my daughters who has anything to do with me at all is my youngest daughter down in Texas. She's the one that sent that letter to me. The other ones, they don't have any respect for me at all. And that's their privilege, you know. But I won't coerce them, and I won't argue with them. They just don't, they wouldn't listen to me if I told them. They've never read a manuscript or anything about this. They laugh at me. And that's all right. That's their privilege, you know. But before I die, I hope I can complete enough of what I think and what I've discovered that my daughter will carry on. At least get somebody to look at it and get it out. And somebody else, some other fellow, well and more intelligent, will really pick it up and go from there with it.
Roy, I've taken more than a brief look at your manuscript, and I, like you, believe strongly that the world would be a much safer place and a better place for all of us if people were debunked, if Christianity were debunked, if people could indeed be shown. They could be shown the falsity of their belief, the ridiculousness of it, really. But I have a question for you, to which I genuinely do not know the answer, and I've thought about it some time. I want to ask you why in your opinion it is, that the purveyors of this Christian bullshit, of these Christian lies, want so very, very much to prevent their flock from enjoying sexual pleasure. Why is it that sexual pleasure is incompatible with the Christian faith?
Actually, it isn't. And it's very obvious that it isn't if people were honest. But fellows like Falwell, the son of a bitches, who like to control other people's lives, he with his Liberty University and so forth, Robertson, all this talk now about abortion, the sons of bitches want to control other people's lives. That's the only reason for it. But it's not only Christianity, it's Judaism. All of them. After all, the basis for Christianity is Judaism. If it weren't for Judaism, there'd be no Christianity.
True enough. But why pick on the issue of sexual pleasure and sexual gratification? Why do the major religions condemn that particular human activity of all other activities? Why that one?
Well, I don't know.
I don't either.
I just don't know.
We'll have to think about that one.
But I tried to comment on it in what I've said. All this idea of the Old Testament, thou shalt not commit adultery. They didn't believe it. Look at David, the main character of the Old Testament, and Solomon. Well, that David, the son of a bitch, had 800 wives and 300 concubines. Did he practice what he preached? Not by a damn sight. Jesus Christ, his two-time wife of Joseph, Jewish guy, she gets knocked up by a ghost. And that's, as a result of that being knocked up by a ghost, she gave birth to Jesus Christ. That's a complete damn lie. All of it. And Jesus Christ I'm sure what I try to do in my gospelman discussion is to point out the ridiculousness not only of Jesus Christ, but of God, Holy Spirit. And when I say it, at the end of it, they all disappear. I really think that's true.
What?
Personified these people, these names. They become very real to them. When they pray, Dear Jesus, Holy Spirit, Lord God, it's a lot of damn foolishness. They've learned it. They believe it. Millions of people really believe this.
I know they do. It's shocking.
But it's because they've never realized. And I can't tell them.
Not to realize is probably not to question.
That's right. They just accept what they've been told. But you see, Lois, Eric, I really believe that if I could get this into the hands of a few people, that they'd have to really think. I'm not so smart that I'm the only one who sees it that way. And I'm sure that hundreds and thousands of others would too. And be greatly blessed. And think of the children that would be saved. All of the stupidity that is taught in our schools and our colleges. In this new edition, I'm preparing a section just for teachers and parents. Please read these verses in your Holy Bible before you think of exposing your children to it. Now, here they take all these daily words and devotional books. It's the same hash over and over again. Same verses. But that's only to keep people confined to one way of thinking. To prevent them from thinking actually what the Bible says. There isn't one person in 200,000 who has ever read the Bible. I bet you haven't.
No, I haven't.
Maybe you have.
I have. Word for word. Line for line. And my conclusion is that it's bullshit.
It is. No question about it.
I've read major parts of it, but not cover to cover.
Well, when I was probably 12 years old, I was given a Bible by my local church because I could repeat the names of all the books of the Bible, and then went on from there. The Lord's Prayer and all that business.
So you're saying, Roy, that this lie being told and being retold and told again is not merely a fiction, an ordinary fiction, but a very harmful one. You're saying it hurts people.
I'm saying that religion is the most insidious, dangerous, mind-bending, mind-altering, mind-confining, person-limiting, dangerous dope that's ever been dished out by any human being. There's no dope ever produced by man that I know anything about that is anywhere near in the league with religion. And I believe that with all my heart and soul.
Well, maybe that's because that to believe a fiction, to take it as real, is to step away from, I guess, the real reality. To step away from life. He said he might take a nap on us.
Roy just had a narcolepsy attack and is now napping in the chair here. He's just collapsed and warned us ahead of time that this may happen, so we'll just pause here. How often do you just came to life again, and how often do these attacks occur, and they seem to last just a very brief period?
I really don't know. I'd say probably 20 times a day. The serious ones, not very often. But I do have them once in a while. Yeah. The other day, the UPS person found me. They'd gone by with the truck going up one way, and when they came back, I was still out in the driveway. I don't know how long it was, but They came and got me out, awake, and I came up.
How long? When did this start? How long have you been having these attacks?
First was 1941, but I didn't know it was narcolepsy until 1952.
So you've been plagued with narcolepsy then before you experienced your loss of faith, and so in other words, what I'm getting at is somebody that would say that you're being punished by God, using narcolepsy as a punishment tool, that wouldn't be valid because you've been suffering with this much, before that revelation occurred.
No God would do such a thing. Only a Christian God or a Hebrew God would even think of it.
I'm sure you've heard the argument that AIDS now, the epidemic of the AIDS virus, certain people, and especially powerful religious people such as Falwell, have told us that the gay population and intravenous drug users and the like, this, as he refers to the scum or the swine of our society, are being punished by God using AIDS as that punishment stick.
Anyone like Falwell or anyone who says that God does something is a damn liar. There is no God. Falwell is a damn liar anyway from beginning to end.
What do you think about this plea by Oral Roberts? He claims he spoke with God, and God said that he had to raise, I think it was $5 million, or he would be dead, I think, next month in March. What do you think about that?
I think it's a damn lie. Like everything else that Roberts has done with his prayer tower and all that. It's a tower of superstition, that's all. And he's prevailed upon people to give. But our government is one of the worst offenders because they permit people to deduct 50% of what they give to charity, up to 50% of their gross income. They don't have to pay tax on it. Well, so they say to these people, wouldn't you rather give it to us than the government? So what they're doing is robbing. The government is encouraging these religious people to rob the government itself, rob the rest of the people. No, we have a very immoral government right now. Mies, Reagan, all of them. I hope Reagan is out. I believe he is. Don't you? I can't see how they can do anything else but Nixon got away with it. Question of justice in this country is a laugh. Really.
Justice doesn't exist in our system, does it?
No, of course justice probably never did exist. But for them to make a big play of it with the Statue of Liberty and all these celebrations is really a laugh. Here's Reagan acting the way he does. Crook, liar, back of this whole thing, getting away with it. Just like Nixon did, and Agnew, what happened? They slapped him on the wrist. And Nixon's getting a $76,000 year income in retirement. Isn't it wonderful? The justice in America. Other people who robbed a store, they're doing time in jail. No, there's no justice in America any more than there is anywhere else in the world.
Don't you think, Roy, that the Christian or the onward Christian soldier's philosophy has led us into more wars than any single factor?
You're absolutely right. Religion, people are going to discover, as you'll read on one page there, the world's going to discover that religion
This is side two of the interview with Roy, and we're talking about the role of religion in World War and justice and other things.
You take a robin pulling a worm out of the ground. That isn't fair. That isn't justice for the worm. But that's nature. And the same way with any other animal. The bigger animals swallow up the little ones. Fish swallow up the minnows.
What are you saying then? What do you think about the dynamics of nature? Do you think nature itself is just?
No. Not in that sense of the word. No.
But as Lewis said, it's not unjust either, though, is it? It's balanced.
No, it's not unjust. But it's not our idea of justice. It isn't fair for the worm to be swallowed up by the robin, but that's the way nature is. That just is.
Has your interest and the importance of nature in your life changed since you experienced the loss of faith?
Yes, it's improved greatly. My concept and my awareness, being in tune with nature, appreciating nature, being grateful, waking up from the fall. I talk to myself. I don't have anybody else to talk to. I talk to myself when I say, Roy, you're a mighty grateful, lucky man to be in this body of yours. Here's a body that's taking you through this and that. You fall. The other day I fell with my hearing aid on, and things have been really was bleeding.
How do you like living in the sandy Marquette County area here in Buffalo Township? You've got marshlands around you. You've got many bird species at your feeder. It's a very nice landscape to be living in, don't you think?
I love it. I love it. Every day I see something new. Because I read my books. When I become the least bit unhappy or lonely, I dig out a book or I look at the girls. I remember some poem or whatever.
Do you have any favorite girl here among the 494, almost 500 of them?
Not a thing. No, I wouldn't say that I have one who is a favorite. Probably if the one that would come closest would be Bettina over here, because she is the nearest to my wife in appearance. My wife looked almost like her. And
do you personally believe in monogamy, Roy?
No. I don't think that that's necessary at all, although I practice it. But I don't think it's the only way of living by any means. And I don't know. I've never had any experience otherwise, so I can't say. But I can't see that anyone can tell somebody else what to do.
You know, I was thinking it's a bit ironic that you live right across from an old Presbyterian church here with the cemetery. That's how do you feel about that? Is that a plus or a minus, having that sitting there?
I think it's a plus. When I see all these people going in there with their deceased, paying money for caskets that they can't afford, funerals they can't afford, listening to a bunch of empty words, and then disappearing. Once in a while you see somebody else come back and look at a grave, but usually it's a one-time deal. And I've often thought about putting a sign out there so that when they go into the cemetery with the funeral, they can see it. Be sure he's got his copy of the deed to his mansion in heaven, because the Bible says that they have mentioned. Falwell, not more than 2 weeks ago, I heard him say, mansions in the sky, people. The son of a bitch of a liar. What does he mean, mansion? Is it going to be on Jewish Boulevard? Baptist Boulevard? Or what?
It's said that John Muir's father preached over here at the church across from you. Do you know much of the of the Muir family? Have you heard tales about John Muir in this country?
No, only what I have read since I've been here. I didn't know before I came here. I came here out of desperation. It was the only property I could afford. I had lost my business in Illinois, and I only had so much money, and we bought a mobile home down there, and we moved it up here. And I paid $850 for this land.
How much land do you have here, Roy?
1 acre. And people said I was a damn fool, and perhaps I was. But at least it's been a home for me, and I've loved every minute of it.
Do you have any of Muir's writings or any articles on him around the trailer?
Just encyclopedias, that's all. No, I don't.
Now, you've said that the landscape here seems to be very accommodating and embracing of you, but the local people, are something less. You want to tell us a little bit about some of the hate mail that you've been getting?
Well, I don't think that that's really advantageous. Eric, it's better not to dwell on negative things if you can help it. Think of the positive things. Think of the fellow who drives by in his truck and waves and honks the horn, and not the guy who sends you a miserable card or calls you on the phone and tells you you're a damn dumb son of a bitch. You don't realize that you're not going to live to continue any writing on that wall.
But yet you mentioned that these letters and cards and phone calls, these people remain anonymous. None of them have the courage to sign their name to it. Is that correct?
Right. Yeah. Well, it's natural for cowards. They would.
I'm not trying to exploit the negative here at all. What I'm trying to do is establish, though, that indeed you are receiving these things.
Yes, I have. And had been. Well, I haven't received any probably for a month now. Until the middle of January. I don't think I've received any. And I used to keep them, but I don't anymore.
Roy, when I first saw the wall, I turned to my friend Erik and I said, that is a brilliant, poetic diatribe. And it reminds me of poetic passages from William Blake.
I know you mentioned that.
Diatribes against the conventional Christianity that he wrote in the 1790s in England. And I'm wondering right now if you can recall verbatim, word for word, any of the lines on that wall and could recite into this microphone some of them in your own voice. Can you recall verbatim any of the words on the wall? And give it to us as it's written on the wall?
I can't say that it would be exactly the same. All I can, because when I started out, I always didn't finish up with what I started with because of space, because of lettering and so forth. But the fact that Judaism, Catholicism, and Protestantism, all religions are 99% lies, false. The Holy Bible is false. And then the last one is religion is the most insidious, mind-bending, mind-altering. I forgot what I put next.
I think somewhere through it says that the Bible begins with a lie and ends with a lie.
Yeah. But I think.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll come back again one day and we'll go out to the wall and you could read from the wall. I'll add to the. I'll recite that little Blake poem for you that I recited last time, the first time I met you. And if I recite it for you maybe 50 or 60 times, you'll have the gist of it. It took me that many times reading it before I understood it fully. It is a diatribe, a quiet one, against conventional Christianity. And it's called To the God Who is the Accuser of This World. Truly, my Satan, thou art but a dunce, and dost not know the garment from the man. Every harlot was a virgin once, nor canst thou ever change Kate into Nan. Though thou art worshipped by the names divine of Jesus and Jehovah, thou art still the son of morn, in weary night's decline, the lost traveler's dream under the hill. Well, it's been a long time since I've played college professor, and I'm not going to comment on it. I'm just going to give you the poem. I was. I may be again someday. I was recently a college professor, yes, last semester.
Where, in the University of Wisconsin?
No, University of Kentucky.
Oh, Kentucky. How did they receive you down there with your William Lake?
They were frightened. They were very frightened of me in Kentucky.
I can understand why they would be. Because that would stimulate children to think, students to think.
If any thinking is going to be done, it'll be done north of the Ohio River. I can assure you that.
Yeah. What are you going to do now? What are your plans for your life?
Well, they're nebulous at this point. I'm going to write. I'm going to edit. I'm going to have to make a living as a freelancer, an editor and writer.
And are you making out?
I have been. I've been successful last year, and right now is a lean period. I'm looking for new work.
Well, I'm sorry. I don't have any money anyway.
I know.
I live on $497 a month.
I realize that.
And that's the reason that I cut out my second insurance policy, cut out my telephone. Because my medicine and vitamins and so forth are so expensive. And yet I don't want to do without them because they're the things that really have kept me going.
Not Jesus, but pills, right?
Oh. When I was in the University of Wisconsin in 1982, I went there in 1982 after I'd had somewhat of a stroke here. Went to the Portage Hospital. They transferred me to Madison. And they said that I'd have to have an operation. They operated on my spine twice. One day and then the next day an emergency operation because of blood clots. I tried to make a deal with them. That was right after my wife had left. And I told them, since I had already dedicated my body to their anatomy department at the time of my death, I willed it in actual form, why wouldn't it be a good idea for them to use me while I was still alive to experiment with me in any way they wanted to? No matter how long I lived, I didn't want to go on forever, but if they'd only do it for a few weeks and then let me die, I'd appreciate it. Well, they had a meeting. They had two meetings. In the last meeting, they had several doctors there. Only one physician said, point blank, I will have dedicated my life to helping people live. I will not entertain any such idea. But he was the only one who said that. So they went on. And that was from February the 2nd, it was, to July the 17th, before I left. And they had arranged to have my arms both injured to the extent of breaking 12 ligaments in one and 11 in the other, according to the x-rays, and told me, this one doctor came and said, they had put me through a lot of experiments before, but doctor came and said, fella, with a big smirk on his face, you're never going to be able to lift your arms unless you let me operate on both your shoulders. I said, well, how long is it going to take? Well, it said it won't take that long to do it, but you'll have to be in a solid cast for 2 months. And then after you get out of the cast, it'll take you another 2 months in rehabilitation and therapy. And I looked at him and I said, "You son of a bitch. You're the only one, to my knowledge, who's really willing to go ahead and do this. Fella, I want to get out of here as fast as I can. I'd rather go back home and die than here, under your care." So I did. But they sent me a bill for $60,000. And that's really the only reason I'm here today. I realized I was still alive. And I got to thinking about it. I talked with my wife. I said, "Honey, I promised you I wouldn't publish that manuscript because her brother was a minister." And she said, "Please don't publish it." She pled with me, and I succumbed to her tears. 3 or 4 days, she just cried and cried. So I gave it up, put it away. I didn't put it away.
Was that 1955? Is that right?
55. And it's been in the basement, or down in Illinois. It was in boxes. And when we moved up here, I brought it, but I left it in the basement. We had a fire down there, and a lot of it was burned. But when I realized that I was still alive, I decided I'd take a look at it. And I did. Found enough to get started again. And that's how I did it. Couldn't find much, but maybe take a look at some pictures here of one of the Bibles that was destroyed. Maybe you can see down there somewhere in the box.
Roy, how was the $60,000 bill from University Hospitals? Was that paid, or what happened?
Yes, well, it was paid all except I still owe the hospital $4,500 and the doctors $1,500.
All of it's paid with that. Did insurance pay that, or did you have to pay that out of your...
Yes, insurance. But I'd given up the second policy of insurance because they didn't cover it all. And they raised my rates for that insurance 530 times since 1983.
Roy, I want to ask you, getting back to the book.
There ain't a folder down there of what they are. What I was something my wife had. She used to put that on a stairway.
What's this?
Oh.
Right. Let me ask you just one question about the book. Have you got it at a stage of completion at this point? Or do you in your own mind, is it finished?
Yes. It is, except for the questions.
Questions?
Right now, yes. That they can ask and find the answer to. And I think it'll be of interest for the young people and the teachers.
And perhaps to those thousands of, quote, believers, unquote, whose doubt is...
Well, I don't think they're on the bottom. No, they're not down there. They're in that other drawer, but probably all the way down the bottom. They're large pictures by Tissot. And they were in one of the Bibles that burned up. But I saved a lot of them. They're beautiful pictures. I forgot what we were...
We were talking about the book, and you do feel that it's completed now, except for the questions, and you feel that it will be of benefit to young people.
I do. I think it will be benefit to any person who reads it, honestly, with all my heart and soul.
It seems to me it might be encouraging to people who find themselves in tight-knit family and social situations where disbelief is ostracized, or would cause a person to be ostracized. It would give them courage, would it not, to think for themselves?
Yep. I'm going to dare people. When I get it, if I can get it in print, I'm going to write to some of my dearest friends that were in the ministry and so forth, and dare them to read it. I'll give it to them, if I can afford it, and just dare them to read it.
What plans do you have now for publication? How will you attempt to publish the book?
I want to get it complete first, and then I'm going to write to a couple of printers and find out what it will cost to print it.
So you'll do a few hundred copies on your own?
And if that's out of my reach, then I think I will have it photocopied, a few copies, and send portions of it to certain people to see if I can't get someone to finance it. But otherwise, I have no plans. I have no reason to make any such plans. I don't have any money. All I've got is the book. But to me, that's a lot. And it'll be worth a lot, I think, to the person who published it. Really. I really do.
You mentioned earlier in our interview that you believe that the falsity or the sham or the fiction of religion will be exposed in the future, that millions of people will come to see it as unreal?
No question in my mind.
Will that be a new age for the world?
It'll be wonderful for every person in this world and every country in this world. Every country that has been touched by our Christian evangelists and all that hoopla, no matter who they are. Those people have been injured. And this, I believe, will release them and help them. If I didn't believe it, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't write it.
So that's been your motive all along in writing a book that will expose the unreality, the fiction, as you have called it, of Christianity. Your motive has been to free people.
That is right. I don't know whether you have the same impression or not, but because I'm 75, been in 76, and I probably am not thinking anywhere nearly as clearly as I should, and I probably am far more hopeful than I should be. But I believe, really, with all that there is in me, that if I can get the right people to read it, if you got some money or have some influence, that it's going to be a real blessing to humanity. Not only the people who have been deceived by religion, but it's going to help them in the future, too. It'll give other authors a feeling of confidence to go ahead and do it. Really expose them. Far better than I have. I know that. I don't have that ability. I don't profess to. I'm only telling the best I can what my experience has been.
Well, that's all you can do, isn't it?
See, but, well, I guess I'm repeating myself. But I worked hard and long, and I can only hope that it will be published.
I hope so, too. I hope so very firmly. Not for myself or for the people I know who don't believe in the Bible anyway or try to structure their lives on the basis of Scripture. But I hope so, too. I agree with you. The world would be a far better place without such delusions. Let me ask Erik if he has any more questions for you, Roy.
No.
You know, I've talked with you a while.
I would like to say this, that one thing that many people object to is that I have endeavored to make my points by using Scripture, which is rather boring to lots of people. But my reason for doing it is that the Bible itself reveals its hypocrisy, reveals the fact that it is a lie, that it can't be true. And while it may be boring reading for the average person up and down the street, for anyone who's a Bible student or who has been reared in a Christian home, it's going to be effective, I believe. At least I'll be able to help that group if I can get them to read it.
Roy, what is your driving force in life today that since you've given up God, what do you see as being sacred anymore? Anything? Perhaps nature?
Nature. People. There isn't a person that you look at that you can't be full of wonder. Why do I look at a man's eyes? Because you tell something with your eyes that you don't even know you're telling. Your cheeks, your whole personality.
What do you see in the face?
Not your head.
What do you see in the faces of Lewis and I?
I see integrity, sincerity, honesty, interest. You're serious. I know you are. I believe it.
I can laugh too, but yes.
Or I wouldn't have you in the house.
Well, thank you. Those are all nice things, all good characteristics.
In fact, you're in here, but only because I invited you. And a lot of people don't come in because I don't invite them. I've had many people come to the door just since I put this on the wall, trying to get inside. I asked them why. About a week ago, there was a fellow came in a big white car. Said, "You're the man I want to talk to." Well, what do you want to talk about? Well, I've read this stuff on your wall, and really, you've got to be set straight. I said, "Brother, you couldn't come in that door, no matter who you were, what your title is, or anything else. This is my home. Beat it." And he left. So I've had lots of people come. I had 2 women come here one day. "We want to come in and talk to you." I said, "We're from the Grace Sunlight Church somewhere." I said, "People, I'm not interested. If you want to talk religion, your religion, all right, but if you wanted to come in and listen to what I say too, I'll be glad to talk to you. If it will be a 2-way street. Oh no, you've got to be converted."
What do you think about the philosophy that says you see God clearest in nature? You know, you've probably read that, where people have this pantheism or pantheism and this divinity in nature. What
call it God? I don't care what they call it. But the God of the Bible is a false. I don't believe there is a person like we've been taught. They've tried to bring God down to a person. The intelligence of this universe is greater than any concept that man has of a personality. I don't know whether you agree with that.
Totally.
But
yes, I agree with you. Implicitly, I have always felt that the human form is but one form in a myriad of forms, and that it is by no means the apogee of anything. It is another form, beautiful, integral, in its own right, but to me, no more so than a red-winged blackbird or a frog.
That's right. The other day, I get a big kick out of reading. For instance, I read in the Farmer's Almanac that your heart pumps 2,000 gallons of blood every day. So I figured out that my dear heart has pumped over 55 million gallons of blood since I was born. That doesn't mean anything to somebody else, but to me it's a thrill. You know? I get a thrill of moving my fingers, my toes, the wonder of the human body.
Roy, I wanted you to comment too, because you are getting up there in age. Do you recall when you came to grips or faced your own mortality? And I also think that the whole idea of Christianity, I think, does play on the horrible fright that people have of their own mortality. Would you agree with that?
The people are frightened? Oh yes, that's what is all plagued. The people, for instance, down with Jim Baker, all the money they give them, why? Because they think it's going to increase their life, but they don't stop to think what kind of a life it's going to be. What does it mean? See you in heaven. What kind of a form you going to have? Any bones? Any flesh? Can you shake hands with people? Are you going to be able to look at people? What do you mean? What kind of a mansion is it going to be? They're all talking about ethereal things. That's all.
Do you entertain any of the ideas of the metaphysical, like reincarnation? Do you believe in anything like that?
No. I don't know. I just don't believe in it. But it may be because I'm not intelligent enough. Simply because I don't understand it Doesn't mean that it couldn't be true, but I don't look forward to it.
You don't think then that souls are recycled or spirits are come back in another form, or maybe in the wind, or the...
Could? I don't know. But I'm contented with my life. I'm very happy to know that I'm going to return to the earth from which I came and fertilize a tree or something. That's all I expect. I'm grateful for the life. I'm grateful for every day. Just you guys, there's a sense of gratitude within me for being able to look into your eyes and listen to you and talk to you. This is the first chance I've had to jabber like this in a long time. But I'm grateful.
Well, I wanted to mention to you that Gail sends her love, too. She really is interested in what you're doing as well.
Well, I appreciate it. My little daughter, she writes and sends, my granddaughter sends her love, too. Well, those things mean a lot to an old guy, you know. An awful lot.
Do you have anything, Roy, that we haven't touched on that you want to say? Because I really am pretty much out of questions, and I know Lewis may have some things.
I don't think of any particular. Have you ever read that book?
Now Roy is showing me a book called The Function of the Orgasm, the Discovery of the Organ.
Reich. Wilhelm Reich.
Yeah.
By Wilhelm Reich. No, I haven't, Roy. I haven't ever heard of that book.
Well, I just happened to think because you said that Gail had one of those old tin plates up in the bathroom, that you might be interested in knowing about this because it really is a wonderful book.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay. All right. You think I can pick up a copy of that in a bookstore then?
Sure. I did.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep. I don't remember where now, but
that would be something that both of us would be interested in reading then.
Both of you? Anyone? Everyone?
Yeah. Yes, I would.
How I've used it. But I'm one who uses and marks books like everything. I show you my Bible before you go.
Roy, just is there a main message in that book, The Function of the Orgasm? What can you sum it up?
Then, well, no, I wouldn't attempt to. But it's the thing that has been so wonderful for my wife and myself.
So it's been out a while. It's been out a while. It's not just a new release then.
Oh, no. It's been out.
Reich was a psychologist prominent in the 30s, correct? 1930s.
Well, I imagine this was around 50 or so, 55. We actually printed it in Cleveland.
Copyright 1942 was the first issue.
I was with the World Publishing Company, and we printed it for them. Mm-hmm. In fact, I don't know if it says anything about World in there, but we did print it. But I think Meridian was the outfit that printed distributed the book. But we printed it. See, when I was at World, we published Bibles, too. Sold millions of them.
Right. I just want to say, as we wind down here, that I am impressed with your study, with your scholarly inquiry into the problems of life, that indeed you have, without a school and without a class and without a teacher, undertaken to educate yourself. And wherever I see that, I am deeply impressed.
Well, you feel at home with a guy that does that, don't you?
Yes, as far as I'm concerned, the only teaching is self-teaching.
That's right. That's right. Not mimicking, not repeating, but actually digging it out for yourself. There isn't a day goes by that I don't find something new in life that I never knew before. If it doesn't come to me offhand, I dig it out of the encyclopedias or some magazine or something. But there isn't a night that I go to bed that I haven't learned something new that day. You can say, well, why learn it if you're going to go die? What's you going to do with it? I don't care what happens afterwards. I'm enjoying this minute. This is the only time I can live. I can't live yesterday, and I'm not going to worry and fuss about the doomsday of tomorrow. I'm going to live today and enjoy every swallow of water or milk or anything else to the fullest. Really enjoy it. Taste it. Not rush through it, but taste it. I love it. Same about ideas. I think ideas are wonderful for your mind. Don't you?
Don't you?
Yes.
Don't you think, though, that our modern academic system does everything in its power to kill ideas?
Yes. To get you to conform and fit into a pattern.
I like to call it the academic fishbowl that refuses fresh water.
That's right. That is right. You're right.
So the little organisms die for want of oxygen.
That's right. I agree with you.
Well,
I'm very interested in this, not philosophy, but in this experience of yours of enjoying to the fullest, let me quote you, every sip of water and every breath and every sight that you see. I'm very, very interested in that. I think that must be something quite rare.
Well, I think my daughters all have it. I believe it. My daughter, for instance, she often says to me, Dad, I'll never forget you're telling us about this or that. For instance, I taught them a poem once. A baby mole got the feeling big and he wanted to show how he could dig, and so he plowed along in that soft, warm dirt until he hit something hard. It really hurt. He sat on his haunches and began to pout. Then he hit the thing again with his snout. His grandpa picked him up, half dead, and he said, Young man, though your head is made of bone, you can't butt your way through solid stone. This is true. Young fella, if you can't go through or over or under, go round. And then that went on into other verses.
I need those other verses, Roy. What are they? If you can't go through or under, what happens? You go round?
Go round.
and then?
Well, that's it.
Oh, okay.
If a stranger came to a stream one day, and because it presumed to cross his way and not change its course and suit his whim, go with him, his anger rose far more than it should. He vowed that he'd cross right where he stood. The stranger told him there was a bridge down below, but he shook his head and said, No, I won't budge. I'm going to cross right here. And even though the current was swift and the bank was steep, he jumped right in with a violent leap. And the fisherman hauled him out, half drowned. The lesson is, if you can't go through or over or under, go around.
If you can't go through or over or under, go around. Something profound there, Roy. Very profound.
Simple, you know. But if you come to a place that you can't get through in life, remember that. Because you can always get to the place you're going if you'll set your sails the way the wind is blowing. You know? And
I like that. I like that.
it doesn't make any difference what it is you're after, as long as you know what you want and you go that way. If you can't go through one way or over or under, go round. You can always get there.
How does one come to know what they want?
I think it's an insatiable appetite that man has. But you have to make decisions of what you want and have goals. A goal today, whatever it may be. And reach it.
Even a little one, huh?
That's right. Every goal. That's where our subconscious comes in. Fellas, if we really have convinced our subconscious, now for instance on this book, I believe with all my heart and soul, that if my subconscious were not responsive to me, and if I hadn't convinced myself, my deep belief within, that I wanted to do this, after I came out of the hospital, found I was still alive, I wouldn't have. It would have just rotted down the basement. But because I did have a goal, and because I set my sails toward it, picked up what I could as I went along. I'm going to reach that goal. At least I've gotten this far, and I believe I'll reach it anyway. I could have lived to be 100, 200, I don't know. Nobody knows. One day at a time, day by day, in every way, I'm getting better and better. And I believe it, even though I have lots of pain involved. I still know that I am getting better and better, because I believe it.
Roy, do you see the quality of life in our country, if you look back on your lifetime, do you see the quality of life in this country improving, or are we losing some things that are essential to preserve in terms of quality of life issues?
It's hard for me to say. For me, there isn't anything. If they never had it, they haven't lost it. But I know that the simplicity of my life on the farm is wonderful to me now.
So you're very thankful to have had that background.
I am, because I'm able to get along with a lot of things that a lot of people think they need. And I don't.
We certainly live in a very consumptive society.
Yeah. We're,
Consumptive, of course, means sick as well. It's a disease of the lungs.
I can't say that I've ever met anyone that I didn't really love. Not like Falwell, not that I mean that I wouldn't hurt him. But I would tell the people that he's a liar. But I wouldn't physically do anything to hurt it. But mentally, I feel justified in saying what I do, because I believe he is absolutely wrong, and he is hurting people. Lots of people. But I love people, and I always have.
I've just got to ask you this, and I'm asking you this in all respect, but, you know, I don't know if your daughters ever visit you or not. The one from Texas might visit you on occasion, I would think. But are they at all offended, or is any woman offended when she comes into the trailer and sees these ladies on the wall?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
They've never said... Well, no, wait a minute. Yes, there were two women. When I first came home from the hospital, came from the social services department. One of the nurses had to be here when I was delivered at home, because they said I could not live in this home. So they had the nurses here to double check with the hospital before they released me. And one of those nurses said, "You should tear down every one of those pictures and burn them up." But she's the only one who ever did that. No.
Roy, I've been reflecting off and on since I asked you the question about why it is that the purveyors of religious untruths seek to prevent their flock from enjoying sensual pleasures. And I think it might be simply that if people really did discover their bodies and the intrinsic pleasures of the flesh that are built into them, that it would be so great of a joy compared to the joy of religious faith that most people, in other words, the priests understand that sexual joy and sexual pleasure is a threat to whatever payoff or pleasure or joy there may be in belief.
That's right. I agree with you.
I think we're hitting on now how it works and why it works that way, and why the priest must always tell people to keep their pants up.
Can you imagine why it is that your Catholic people, fathers, mothers, sisters, are all pseudo-fathers? Why is it? Because they yearn for it. Yeah. And in order to overcome that unnaturalness, they get a pseudo name. Father, so-and-so, mother, sister, brother.
And here, you ran an ad in the local paper, a personals ad, advertising for female companionship. You had 50 responses, 48 of which were from married women. You know, and good church women, as you said as well. It must be that they yearn for sexual gratification after a lifetime of privation.
That is right. I wouldn't be at all surprised if that is it. I don't know.
I don't know either. I'm just wondering.
Guts to go through with any of them. I lost all heart when I realized that so many of these women were married women and made no bones about calling me on the phone or writing to me. I just could not.
They must. I understand. They must have seen an opportunity, a rare opportunity, to have some pleasure with someone, some physical pleasure.
That's right. I think you're right. I think you're right. Why is it that many of you Catholic people do that, who are dedicated to not having children or doing anything sexual? Why is it that so many of them do? I think it's only normal. It's natural. But all they have to do is ask forgiveness, and the slate is wiped clean. That's all. You know? It's poppycock.
We are, and I'm getting low on time. I know I've got to get back to Madison in anticipation of a phone call.
Well, 7 o'clock from there, right?
I know.
I'm sorry I didn't have something before the Eid followed.
That's fine. I'd like to come back again. We'll continue at another day.
All right. Good, sure.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Roy.
To my yapping, I'll be glad to.
Okay, thanks. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you much.
Okay.
Well, I want to say thanks too, Stinky, and you've really got a story to tell. I would call it a real tempest in a teapot story. And good night and God bless.